Hi everyone and welcome. You're watching Chai with Chaitanya. I am Chaitanya and this is a place where I talk about books, movies and fandom. And today I'm here to talk about this incredible book that I happen to read, and it's called The Darkness Outside Us by Eliot Schrefer. And this book is coming out on the 1st of June 2021, and it is a YA Sci-Fi LGBTQIA read. And I read this and I loved it so much. So I cannot wait to tell you guys more about this. So this is my non-spoilery review for this book. Before we go ahead, can we just take a moment to appreciate how gorgeous the cover for this book is? I remember seeing this book, the cover reveal on Epic Reads, and the moment I saw it, I went straight to my Goodreads and added it to my books that I wanted to read this year, and it was also one of my most anticipated reads. So when I got an early proof copy for it, I was more than elated to be reading and reviewing it. In this book, we follow two main protagonists who are boys who are teenagers, as you can already see from the cover. Boys are basically from two different nations, and these two nations have had their differences for quite some time, and it's implied that they're probably the last existing nations on Earth, and these two boys are sent on a rescue mission to space to bring back or to investigate what happened with Amberos's elder sister, who had also gone on a space mission some years ago, but she never returned. So nobody knows whether she's alive, whether she's dead, whether she's being held captive, or what's just going on with her. So these two boys are sent on this space mission, and we start following them when the spaceship is already in space, and both of these people do not remember anything about launch. And because they both are from nations which otherwise have not really been very cooperative with one another, so there is naturally some sort of animosity between these two characters, and which is why they start off as enemies. And the most interesting part is that there are proofs that there was somebody on the ship, and they don't know who it is, but there are certain things that point towards it. And the AI, or the operating system for the spaceship, is actually voiced by Amberos's mother. And this OS is very interesting because it gives them lots of tasks, and certain things and certain tasks that they are given are very weird, because in the sense that they are not really told as to what they are doing and why they are doing. So they're always sort of kept in dark, and they're not sure as to what is happening. So these two boys have to then get together to figure out that what exactly is happening with them, and where are they exactly going, and what is their future. So that's basically more or less the very general premise, and I could have explained it in more depth, but I actually would want you to go into this book just knowing that it is about two boys who are on a rescue mission. They start out as enemies, and then something happens between them, and they of course they become lovers. Now, as you can probably already guess, this book has the classic and cliche enemies to lovers trope, but what I particularly enjoyed about the enemies to lovers trope that is done in here is the way it's written. And before I go and talk a little more about enemies to lovers, I would have to tell you about the writing style and the world building. So because this world has this dystopian sci-fi slash fantasy feels to it, the world building is done fairly well, because you do not really have to create a lot of stuff from the scratch. I mean, space is something that we all know how it looks. So the world building in here is very to the point, very whimsical, in the sense that it's very immersive, and you constantly get to feel as that what is happening in with these characters is exactly what is happening to you. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was that the AI, or the OS itself, is a character which is a part of the world building, as well as it's a character of its own. And the AI, or the OS, is so interesting because not only that it's very sarcastic and it's very witty, but it's also quite grim, and it can get quite dark when there is a need for it. And you are never sure as to what the motives of the AI or the OS is, and you have to constantly keep guessing, and that just added that extra touch of suspense slash mystery to the whole thing, which I really enjoyed reading. In terms of writing, this book has a very different and a very unique style of plotting and I mean, there is no chapter per se, but you do have tasks that the AI or the OS gives to these people. So there are indications where how many tasks are left, and that is probably supposed to act as chapters, I'm not sure. But you is divided into six parts. So the first part is where I was like, okay, I can understand where it's going. I had predicted some certain things, but the moment the first part ended and the second part started, I was absolutely mind boggled. I just did not see the kind of plot twist that was brought in, and I was blown off. Like, I was literally blown off. And I would be honest here, I'm not a person who reads a lot of sci-fi based novels. I do not like space. I have never wanted to be, like most kids my age, they have always had this fascination with space. I was never one of those kids. So I never wanted to pick up novels with space based fantasies or sci-fis. But when I saw this, it really caught my attention. I thought that why not? Like, it's always good to try out new stuff. And I'm so glad that I did it, because this book was so interesting. And one of the major problems and challenges of reading sci-fi books is the amount of overload of information that you get from the author in terms of space related stuff. But this book, I think it handled it so carefully that Eliot did not give you unnecessary details or unnecessary, stuff that you have no requirement of. He just gave you whatever you needed and whatever was, basic for the story to move forward. And I think that is what worked in the favor of the story. The next thing I want to quickly go ahead and talk about both these characters. Now, what I particularly enjoyed about both these characters were that how different they were from one another, and yet they sort of came together for the common purpose. And I think that is normal, because when you are in space and when you see that there is nobody around you, I think you instantly would try to associate with the first person that you have in front of you. But because there is a plot twist that is also introduced later in the book. You will get to know it, I think, by the end of the second part, if I'm right. And because I cannot tell you, because this is a non-spoilery section, you would get to know that even though these characters are supposed to be humans, they are humans or they are not. I can't tell you, but the way they are handled and the kind of emotions and the kind of layers that the characters have got is very interesting, because with each part you get to delve deeper and deeper into these characters, and you see that how they start learning to trust one another more. This novel is primarily all about it talks a lot about the overall theme, if you ask me, is not only that it's a romance at the end of the day, but I think that the broader theme that Eliot wanted to cover was that how humanity would probably get in 5,000 years or 6,000 years from now. I don't know, whatever amount of future, because this book does cover a lot into the future. And I think it also wanted to show that how important it is to have human connections and human emotions. It is a story about survival, and again, at the end of the day, it's also a story about love. So overall, I think I really enjoyed this book, and I do not see any reason why you should not be picking this up. If you are a person who enjoys reading books with sci-fi, then you're gonna love this book absolutely, without a doubt. If you are somebody who loves reading pure romances and want to read more of male on male LGBTQIA romance, then again, this book is perfect. There aren't too many steamy scenes. In fact, now that I come to think of it, there are no steamy scenes, because this is YA. But even then, the angst and the kind of moments that both these characters have are very adorable, and there's something very innocent and raw about them, which I particularly enjoyed. And I think that it's worth reading a romance which is very different from what we are normally used to. And I think I loved this book so much, purely for the fact that how unpredictable it was. And I'm sorry if my if my review is not sounding very coherent, or if I'm repeating some certain points here, because a lot happened in this book, and I'm finding it very difficult to actually comprehend it and tell you in a very concise manner. But key thing that you need to be taking from my review is that you absolutely need to go and check this book out, and you have to add this on your TBR. And I think this is my new favorite novel, and I have already given it a 5 stars without a doubt. There is no question I will give it anything less than 5 stars, and I would want you guys to also check this out. If you have read similar books, then do let me know. I remember reading one which is called Bonds of Brass by Emily Strutsky, which is the first book in the Blood Right trilogy. And unlike this book, I did not enjoy that book very much for its very own reasons. I haven't covered that book in my YouTube video blog here. We'll be talking about it again in probably a more spoilery video, where I would talk about what were the other things that really completely blew my mind. Until then, hopefully you're doing good, and bye.